Right, welcome everybody to today's council ordinary meeting of Thursday, 25th July. I welcome everybody, welcome those online. I do note that also on Zoom we have Councillor Wong. As such, we have had the council prayer this morning, so we won't repeat that. Apologies, I think everybody is here, so skip that. Moving to the public forum, we have a couple of groups in terms of public forum, and the first of which I'd call to up beside me, please, is Martin Arts and Crafts, and welcome Carol Bryant and Anne Wayman. And Carol, you're speaking.
Ooh, I'm not scaring you away, am I?
No. Carol, you have 10 minutes, which includes question time. How you use that time is up to you. You can't ask questions of councillors, but they get the opportunity to ask questions of you.
Right. I'm Carol Bryant and I'm a potter, a member of Martin Arts and Crafts for quite a few years, and recently, very recently, on the committee. And what I'm here for is that the Rangitikei District Council gave a grant to us for EMS Arts show, it was, which I had to look up what EMS stands for. And it's Emergency Medical Services, and Marin was running that. Unfortunately, that has folded the show because the committee were going through a bit of a bad patch. So that committee is no longer there, and we've got a new committee. And it was decided to run our exhibition yearly, which has been very successful. And we were hoping, because we've been given the money, which is 1,600. We're hoping that instead of giving it back and then reapplying, that we can have that money for advertising for our exhibition this year, which is in September. Yeah, so that's why I'm here. It's last year we had 475 visitors into our centre. Yeah, to the exhibition. We have 3 guest exhibitors. This year we've got our new president, Adele Dewberry, who's an abstract painter. One of our regular members, Marion Grinstead and Rosalind, do glass fusing, and Susan Shand, who's coming from Wanganui, to do felting. Yeah, and it's a very good exhibition for the Martin district and the wider district. So that's my.
Carol, are you happy to take questions?
Yes. Yep.
Questions, Councillor Wilson, Councillor Delgado, Councillor Wilson.
Hi Carol, congratulations on being elected to the committee. Could I just ask the two things that you're referring to, the one that unfortunately had to be cancelled and the one that you're now proposing that the money gets carried forward to, do they both achieve the original outcomes of what your original application was to do? Are they basically the same outcomes going to be achieved?
Absolutely, yep.
Cool. Thank you.
Councillor Dalgety.
Congratulations on the 475 visitors. That's
Mm.
great. Similar question. Would you normally apply for money for the second, for the exhibition? So you won't need to be doing that if this money's carried forward.
Correct.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councillor Lambert.
The arts and crafts, what's you do? Pottery, felting, sewing? What?
Oh, yeah, painting, weaving, yeah,
Anything?
yeah.
So you're open to
Yeah.
anyone, if someone comes along with a craft, they're welcome.
Oh,
Away
absolutely.
they go, yeah.
Absolutely. We have what we call a makers market every month, and we get a lot of people from outside the district and asking what we do and joining up. Because
Counts.
yeah.
Sorry. Councillor Moore.
Do you charge the entrance into the exhibition?
Yes, we do.
So so the $1,600 you mentioned is for advertising?
Advertising, yeah.
Oh, yeah. What are your other costs and is this to break even or do you make a bit of a profit out of it or?
We make a little bit of a profit.
Yeah.
That's what we hope to do.
Yeah.
One of the reasons is we want to make it affordable for people to come and join Martin Arts and Crafts. So they do try and make the membership quite low. So yeah.
And so your entry fee is your contribution to the success of the exhibition, and this would be just to help.
I think so. Yeah. Advertising I've got a budget here for advertising. Comes to 2,490. And we've got last year's figures as well.
And what entry fee?
$5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for no further questions. Thank you very much for your time. You've explained yourself very well. What's all need to be made as a decision later in terms of the Chief Executive's report. So I can't just put it to a vote now or discussion now, but thank you very much.
That's great. Thanks, Andy.
In terms, next one, Nisha, come on up.
Oh, excuse me.
Let you just organise. So, councillors, I'm privileged to be able to have my TUIA representative, Nisha Nepe, talking to council and introducing her. So, Nisha, you have 10 minutes, and that includes question time. And if there's anybody else you want to introduce that it's accompanied you, it's your call.
Yep.
The time is yours.
Kia ora, ko waiho, ko Nisa Nefu tōku ingoa, he reo o ngā wāre ki me ngā tiapia. So kia ora, my name is Nisa. I'm from around here, also from Whanganui, which is where I'm living. This is Boston. She's our comms person at Te Reo o ngā wāre ki me ngā tiapia. So I'm currently working there full time as well. My mahi that I do there is research within our Te Taiao space and doing a lot of ArcGIS mapping and also admin. So yes, I've been very privileged to be a part of TUIA, the kaupapa that's run around New Zealand. I was lucky enough to get in and have an interview with the mayor around the kaupapa, and once I heard what it was about, it was something that I was really excited to get into, a different space. We've so far had 3 wānanga around TUIA. Our last one that we had was down south in Waikawa, which is around TUIA i roto, which is weaving within. which has made me think a lot about the mahi that I'm doing in these spaces and how grateful I am to have people like the mayor as well that still continue kaupapa like this because it is important. Yeah, it's very nice to meet you all. Boston's here taking photos for me for my end of year Toya presentation that I want to do. So hopefully I might be able to come back and show you that as well. Yeah.
Are you happy to take questions?
Yes, any parts I.
Okay,
Tēnā koe, Nessa. My question would be, prior to you looking at the Tuia program, is local government been something you've been interested in anyway?
Yes, so I was a part of Māori Pituatuni, which is a iwi leadership program run through Ngā Wānaki Ngāti in my last year, which was in 2021, we had a look, we were actually doing it with Auntie Koro around our dreams and aspirations for what we wanted to do after kura and after the program. And I was really into politics and I didn't think I was mature enough straight after school, but going into the big wide world and seeing what it was actually like, I want to help create change, especially around Māori and Te Ao Māori, which is why I love being a part of Tuia, because I'm surrounded by people that are older, younger, same age as me, but with the same aspirations for our future. So it's been, yeah, really cool.
Councillor Dalgety.
I'm just interested, what's a challenge that comes to mind that you've had to face in this program?
Probably being vulnerable. A question we got asked at our last running was, what was our purpose for the mahi that we do? So I grew up in Australia since I was 2 till I was 14. And over there, being Māori, I struggled with wearing our traditional clothing that we have and stuff, and even speaking Māori, I would get bullied for. And I think a big part of what I want to do in the future is ensure that rangatahi don't feel the same mama that I did growing up around their identity and who they are. Yeah, so that's probably just the biggest struggle.
Councillor Kawa, Councillor Kawa first.
Kia ora koutou ngā mihi nui kia koe mō tēnei wā. Kia ora Nessa, thank you very much for being up here. It takes a lot to be able to stand in front of a lot of people, to kōrero, to make yourself vulnerable. So I commend you for that, and to be able to feed back to us, the councillors, on how it's been for your program, how it's been for the 2-year program. A question I have is, you've been around, you've talked to other people who are doing this program, you've been with the mayors, looking at council. Would you yourself, or would you let others know, inspire others to become a councillor or sit at this table? Would you want to sit at this table?
Yes, I did actually have a talk to Mayor Andy the other weekend about what it takes to actually get a seat at the table.
Yes.
I know that I'm quite young, and me being a young Māori wahine as well is quite hard and daunting in these situations. No offense, sorry. But I was genuinely just asking what it takes to get a seat at the table. Because to me, I feel like a lot of people say that our rangatahi are our leaders of tomorrow, but I think that we are today as well, especially under our new government as well, and just giving awhi and support to us now into these spaces, so it's not so daunting when things just get handed over. Yeah, so very keen. I want people to come into more of these spaces, especially young ones as well, because I think it's a great space to get into and actually have a voice at the table. Yeah.
Councillor Loudon.
Yeah.
You're very brave, well done. You're doing very well. Have you ever thought of tertiary education, going to university?
Yes.
Your interests?
I was going to study my business diploma, But life got in the way of that. I moved back from Palmerston North back home, struggling a bit up there, but being home and being more grounded and having the support of my whānau, I have those opportunities now to go study with the help of my iwi as well, with funding and support from that as well. Yeah, so studying next year is something that I'm really keen to get involved in once I settle into my mahi that I'm doing now.
Any further questions, councillors?
I'd just like to congratulate you on your aspirations. It's nice to hear a young person going ahead like you are.
And a lot of us do, and I think it's just because a lot of people are shy to come in these spaces as well. So that's why I'm hoping that with the people that I've met through Tuia, I know that New Zealand's on the right path. Yeah, so good.
Any further questions? Agnesha, it is, first of all, this program is a two-way mentoring street, and we learn from each other. And my experience as a mayor has been enriched over time by not only yourself, but a number of the people that were in front. We've had to do some car trips in terms of transport, and there's some fairly robust discussion. So it's a real pleasure to have you here presenting to council.
Thank you.
Kia ora.
We would meet reasonably often, and whether that is for a meeting in terms of the agendas as to what I'm doing here, what council's doing, whether it's a meeting just for a personal catch up, cup of coffee, etc., you know, aspirations and so on. Fantastic relationship. Moving to item number 4, I'll ask for conflicts of interest declarations, and you can make them when a relevant item comes up for council, of course. Confirmation of order of business, I see no change. Nothing from the chief executive. Thank you. Confirmation of minutes, looking at alterations, sorry.
Sorry, just number 2, could I please put in my apologies for an early departure, a 3 p.m. departure?
Okay, thank you very much. We'll record that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, councillor Duncan. Looking for alterations, corrections to minutes, pages 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Page 15?
Yes, page
sorry.
15.
Yes, page 15, sorry, I'll just get it. I believe that there should be a reference 3/4 of the way down, Taihape Town Hall. Once again, that should read 67 to 80% NBS standard.
As a figure, I thought there was a range. Can I have?
Yes, it is. It's between
Yeah.
67 and
Yeah,
80.
From two, okay.
Thank you.
Any feedback from staff?
I think the correct figure is in the work plan,
Yeah,
isn't
that's
it?
what I
So
was just
just,
looking
yeah,
at.
Okay, thank you.
yeah, just amend that one.
We'll amend that. Councillor Rakawa, did you have one?
No, sorry.
16, 17, 18, 19 and 20.
Page 20.
Yep.
Oh, beg your pardon. Oh, I just made a note to say thank you for the better communication.
Okay, thank you very much. All right.
Okay.
Would somebody like to receive, please? Looking for a mover 2. Councillor Sharlin moving, Councillor Rakawa seconding. As amended. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Item number 7, the follow-up actions from previous meetings. What was that with you?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Worship. Just, we have tried to add commentary where some of these may be closed off and provide further update to some of the ones in here. So between myself and the other ELT members, we're happy to answer any questions.
Any questions with regard to 1, 2, 3 and 4? Perhaps
Mr. Chairman, I can give just an update on item 2 is that we are progressing with a sympathetic and helpful landowner about the soil of Putorino, but remember there's still some other outstanding stuff, like, as you're aware, there's still stuff on the site, but I'm not sure that the final sign off will come into summer when they can see below the water line when the river recedes. So I think it's worthwhile still being on there, but progress is being made.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Question, for that, if I may, your worship, but looking at item 2 and item 6, they are both correlated, so is your ongoing discussions?
I think they are correlated, but the item 6 is a specific one which I've tried to contact Mark today to see whether that had gone in, so I've let that drift over the last couple of weeks and I haven't been here. Sorry. So I need to chase that up because my understanding was that was made after the last council meeting that submission went in. So I just need to know whether that has or not.
So just for clarity, they are two distinctive.
Correct. One's making a submission in for that money and the other one's dealing with the whole project and trying to get a sign off.
Thank you. Councillor Loudon.
Item 4, I noticed that it's closed, but those buildings are on the market now. Will you be getting regular updates from the agent regarding interest?
I would imagine it would be here every time. If it's not on the C's report, it'll be a specific report on itself, but we can do that.
5, 7 and 8. 9, 10 and 11.
Item number 10, your worship, has there been any progress made on about the Bulls buses? Trucks entering the Bulls bus lane?
First, I'll make comment, but I'll leave it to staff first.
Thank you, your worship. And not in the last one.
Just out of interest, I did a bit of research about introducing a bylaw, and as a council, if we applied under the Land Transport Act 1988, we can apply and have our own traffic management bylaw.
Yep.
Which would then enable us to fine truck drivers.
Yeah, it's there's a lot rolled up in there. We already have bylaws. It's the question is the enforcement of those bylaws that we already have. In the last one we written, we actually had a specific wording in there to allow for bus lanes. So we did prepare it. I had a quick conversation with the regulatory group manager, and yeah, I can't comment on the details of how we enforce, but that's really the question. So the bylaws are sufficient. This is the enforcement.
All right.
Councillor Loudon.
I don't know whether you've ever considered this, but barrier arms, just to allow buses through as opposed to trucks, like it just identifies this as a space.
Thank you, your worship, for the opportunity. Yeah, I agree. The question is just squeezing it all in. So the question has there been any movement over the last month? And the answer is no.
Councillor Morn.
Going back to the Otara Bridge, I don't know if it's the right time to bring it up, but the costs involved with that.
Yes.
Via my email.
Yep.
Your
worship, thank you. I've got some details and I think it might be worthwhile reading them out. I will also send an email around to all councillors so you've got that as a note. So what we got on, so the question was how much is spent so far in the 2023-24 financial year. The strengthening of the bridge was a joint project between us and MDC. The RDC portion of the strengthening budget was $341,968. And the actual cost in that year was $335,000. So it's pretty much just under what was budgeted. We received NZTA FAR rate on that of 63%, which means our contribution for 2023-24 was $123,950. Then we had to construct 22 new vertical hangars. That's just been completed. Our portion of that cost, of the total cost, was $12,000. We get 63% FAR rate on that, which means our total cost is $4,440. And then we have to install those 22 hangars this year. So the 24-25 financial year, our portion of that cost is 96,500. So obviously that work hasn't been done, so I can't tell you what the final cost will be. The fire rate on that is 66%, which means our contribution is $32,810. Yeah, so there's all the numbers, and like I say, it's quite a lot. I'll send it around.
Thank you.
Can I just ask, what is concerning to councillors here? One is the time delays of this project. Two, we get advice from communities that there are teams of people there that are not achieving anything, that are just waiting. And are we being charged by a company while this work continues? There is a high degree of frustration in the community and with council with regard to this. And we have very little oversight because of its a shared service nature. I'm not sure that there's an answer to that, but
I can make an attempt at a half an answer. Is that it's really the inconvenience that it's caused, because most of those jobs are specified in terms of dollars. So it's not like it's an open contract on an hourly base. So most of them will be dollar specific. It's whether or not the advice is going out to people when it's open or closed, and that's more my issue rather than the length of time, because it will be under a contract. It's not on an hourly base.
Your Worship, if I may just add, I would like to acknowledge the frustration that must have caused over such a long time. I think the timeframes are unacceptable, and we should be able to do better.
With regard to the other item that I was going to make comment on in terms of the bus lanes at Te Matapihi, I personally have a huge degree of frustration over this process. I continue to chase individual companies. As of yesterday, for example, there was a loaded, presumably loaded milk tanker and trailer parked within the bus lane. And then arguing that they should have the right to be able to use them because it's easy access. I have rung that particular company, and I've yet to speak higher up the chain, but I will take I take these offences highly. But we have to do something. I don't think it's acceptable to council that we can just continue to say it carries on. Sorry to be quite blunt, but that's the feeling that I personally have, and it's the feeling the community has. In terms of the follow-up actions, we have somebody move and second, please. Councillor Wilson moving, Councillor Hira seconding. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Moving to item number 8, the Mayor's report. I will certainly take it as read. And this time I'm using it to tell a story in effect. But there are some other things that I wish to bring to your attention. And one, the reunion at Flock House celebrating 100th anniversary, 20th, 21st. I didn't go to, I didn't have an invitation actually, but it's important that it is recognised that it's a significant event within our district. We've had the Navy Band on tour, and they played at Huntly. They were at Tas yesterday, running workshops and public performances, and certainly at Huntly. The abuse under care, it's received a lot of national coverage in the last few days. Martin has been specifically named, and the government has said there will be a process of redress, a financial redress. How they will achieve that, who knows? But that's happening. Taihape Hautapu Papakai, I think it is a pity that we turned down the offer of army support in terms of doing the bridges. And I will get back to the army. There's quite a story there, but I will get back to the army and for their offer of providing manpower. Next one, we've had the resignation of Max Baxter, the Mayor of Otahuonga, as Chair of Mayor's Task Force for Jobs. And I just would like to acknowledge his work because it has been extensive, and over time there's been a series of funding positions that local government have got because of his work. And yesterday I represented the district at the Four Regions Trust. And that trust has given to our district $216,000. So they've given out just under $1 million, and we have certainly had our share. And we had a number, I'd like to acknowledge the number of representatives from, you know, our rugby clubs at Hunterville and Bulls and, you know, various committees that turned up in Wanganui to say thank you. And that is appreciated by the trustees, and a couple of the trustees made comments around it. I'll take, before we get into remit papers, etc., I'll take any questions around my report or attendance. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much, Your Worship, for this report and outlining the story around the Hotepe River Parks, because obviously we're very proud of our Turakina reserves as well, Tutainui Reserve, I beg your pardon, and the way that the community has been fantastic around there. But this is in my backyard, and it's a very beautiful backyard, and that was really lovely. Thank you. I'll just to be a pedant, paragraph 2, where it says which adjoins both sides of the rivers, tracks and parks. I think that should be joins, because just for meaning, because adjoins means it's on the sides, but the river is joined. The sides are joined by the bridges.
Done my grammar.
That's okay. It was just a wee in there. I just also wanted to say that I did attend the Navy concert at TAS yesterday morning with Councillor Wong, and it was fantastic. It was off the charts great, and I'd really recommend anyone who can go along to those concerts. They were so engaging. They had 3/4 of the children up boogieing with the teachers. It was really outstanding. So thank you.
Any further questions around that?
I
Councillor
attended the
Charlotte.
Flock House reunion and it went off really well.
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, so it's good.
Yeah. Anything else, Councillor Hill?
No question, just a comment to thank you again, Your Worship, for the work that you put in as our mayor, and for the different places and spaces that you show up in on our behalf.
It's a privilege to attend, it really is. So, thank you. I need to deal with a series of remits. So, councillors, I'm hoping that, and I'm understanding that you will have spent some time reading through these various remits. And as such, I need an opinion from you as to which remits council supports. So if I take remit 01, page 33 of the report first, this is the representation review. Would somebody like to move that we support, and then we'll have a vote? Councillor Wilson, you're so moving to support. Councillor Hero, you're seconding inappropriately, thank you. And you're moving into support?
To support, yes.
Do you wish to speak to it?
I think it's required, Commissioner.
Any other speakers to this? Vote those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Remit number 2 from that regards the community services card. This is Palmerston North City, supported by Zone 3. Councillor,
I'm happy to move it,
you're happy to move
that we accept
and
it
support?
and support.
Happy to second. Do you wish to speak to it?
Only that this was explained in quite some detail during the Zone 3 meeting, and it just makes so much sense. It will make it so much easier.
Thank you. Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Remit number 3 for local government, looking at page 36, local government constituencies and wards should not be subject to a referendum. Councillor Hira.
Yeah, happy to move.
Councillor Rakawa, you wanting to
Yes.
second? Thank you. Councillor Hira, do you wish to speak to this? Councillor, do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Rakawa?
No, no, thank you.
Any other speakers?
Zone 3.
I'll put it to the vote. Sorry, Councillor Duncan.
Well, I think it's important for those online to understand that this is by having a referendum on this, it is against what is normal for local government. Normally, councils are able to make these sorts of decisions without central government interference. Am I right? Thank you. And so I think that we need consistency, and there is precedence here, and we should stick with it. That's one of the main reasons why this should go through, in my opinion.
Thank you. Happy to put it to the vote, councillors. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you.
Your Worship, could I just make a point to have this noted, that this is a unanimous decision, this particular motion that's been carried? I think it's important.
Yes, I think the eyes of the press are watching here, very much so, and I did take the liberty that one of the press officers was talking the other day, and I said I expected that this would be in front of council, and I would expect the support of councillors, so that will be passed on. Thank you. The next one is around page 49, the entrenchment of Maori wards seats for local government, proposed by Northland. Does anybody want an explanation of what entrenchment actually means? So when something is entrenched, it is no longer, it locks it into the way that the constitution way of government works, and would require a 75% majority to overturn it, or 50% of the voters at a referendum. So would somebody like to move? Thank you, Councillor Hiro moving, Councillor Okawa seconding. Councillor Hiro, do you wish to speak to it?
No, I feel this is a corridor that we not necessarily this specifically have talked about, but in the reading of the remit, it's still in line with what we're trying to achieve. So yeah, I'm totally in support of it.
You wish to speak to it?
Yeah, to tautoko exactly what Councillor Hiroa has said, and to acknowledge the fact that it is in line with what we agreed with in the constitutions and the wards for that referendum as well, and we talked at it. Zone 3.
But is it in essence a constitutional change really in New Zealand that they are seeking? Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. I'd like to speak against this because I don't believe in entrenchment. I saw it working in the last government with things that were not taken to the people, rushed through, and then tried to entrench. And it is my firm belief that entrenchment simply holds up the process should there be a change of heart within the community and within the country as a whole. This is not specific to for me as far as Maori wards go. I believe in our Maori ward. I absolutely support it, but I do not believe in entrenchment.
This does refer to entrenchment of Maori wards. Any other speakers?
I'll speak against as well, for the same reasons Councillor Duncan has. Wholeheartedly support people being involved in our council process or the democratic process, but entrenchment for me in any term, no matter whether it's this or any other part of government, is a bridge too far. So I'll speak against this one. Just the word entrenchment scares me.
Two speakers for, two speakers against. Any further speakers before I go back to write a reply?
I just had a question. Can you define infringement sort of more broadly or more specifically? That seems to be the word that's struggling, people are struggling to get their head around.
So entrenchment literally means it is far harder for a government to overturn. So you have a change of government, and the threshold to change substantially changes with the requirement for a 75% vote. So effectively, it would normally mean that more than one party would be required to change it. Councillor Wilson.
May I speak for, as I still believe you have a spot for a speaker for?
Yes.
I'm going to speak for it because what we've got to consider here is that this is a recommendation from local government. So in supporting this, I hear the comments around entrenchment from other councils, and I respect that, but this is actually supporting other councils through an LGNZ process to take further to government. So I'm quite happy to accept the wording and support it on that basis.
Thank you. Any other speakers against before I go back to write a reply?
I agree with councillors Moore and Gordon about the same sort of thing.
Go back to, we've now had three speakers for, three speakers against. Understanding orders, I need to go back to write a reply. Councillor Hira, you move.
Yes, and my position hasn't changed. I take on board what the other councillors have said. This is a specific thing to do with Māori ward seats. As you see, it's been a proposal that's been put in through the Northland Regional Council and supported by an LGN zone meeting itself. So at the end of the day, a vote will happen around the table as to whether or not we support it as a full council. In my opinion, we are, by being a barrier, we are being a barrier to this moving forward as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. I now must put it to the vote. Those in favour of the motion to support this remit, can you please raise your hands? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Councillor Wong.
Councillor Wong,
Councillor Wong, are you voting? So you're aware of the vote. So
I am, yes.
those in favour of the vote, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against the vote, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That leaves me with a casting vote. I will cast in favour of this on the basis that it takes the conversation forward. Item number 5, the graduated driver licensing system. This is a remit proposed by Ashburton District Council. Would somebody like to move in a position here?
I'll move in favour.
You're in favour of? You wish to speak to it?
Oh, no, just.
Sorry, I need to get a seconder first. Councillor Wilson seconding.
No, just to say, I think it's a good idea. I'm quite happy to roll with it.
Any other speakers? No, put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Item remit number 6, the proactive lever to mitigate the deterioration of unoccupied buildings. Would somebody like to so move? Councillor,
Done this time. Yeah.
you moving in support?
Yep.
Looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Loudon seconding. You wish to speak to it?
This is a big problem in my town, and I have had people just even recently saying to me, we have to be able to have legs when it comes to addressing these buildings that are falling down and are looking so terrible. I have concerns around property rights, but I believe that we have to do it somehow. We have to have government support.
Thank you. Any other speakers? No, put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. That deals. I think that's the last of the remits.
Central government funding, no?
So which page is it?
Page 58.
68.
58.
58.
So it's called appropriate funding models for central government.
Yeah, sorry. The appropriate funding models for central government coming out of Gisborne. You wish to speak? Happy to move. Looking for a seconder to that. Thank you. Councillor Wilson, second. You wish to speak to that?
I think it's all there, but the current system is broken and we need to look at different options or ask for further help.
Any other speakers? I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Right.
Those against? Carried.
Sorry, that was 75.
So the one on 77.
And
77.
and 77, does somebody want to speak to this one?
Happy to move.
Happy to move. This is the goods and services tax refund to local government. You're happy to move? Looking for a seconder? Councillor Lambert, you wish to speak to it?
Just the same reasons, looking at solutions.
Any other speakers?
I'll also speak strongly in favour of this. I think this is something we should really, really fight for this. I'd like to see us go for the jugular on this one.
Do you need a right of reply to that?
I know.
Put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. I think that deals with all I have to deal with in terms of the Chief Executive's report. I'll pass on to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. We'll go through section by section because there are some decisions required by council throughout this report. So just sections 1, 2, 3 and 4, if there's any questions on these.
Councillor.
I'd just like to acknowledge the rugby season. 3 Rangitikei teams got into the final of the Whanganui Rugby, and Uraku won the men's rugby, and the Taihape girls won the girls rugby. And this is a new space for me, and I just acknowledge that in our district, if rugby wasn't there, it's really integral to our communities, and it's been fantastic to see the valour on the field.
Thank you. Can somebody, by the way, move that the report be received? Councillor Duncan, you doing
Move.
so? Councillor Okawa seconding. Those in favour? Those against? Carried.
Thank you. Just moving to section 5 around some of our submissions, and Tiffany is in the room as well to talk about the submission that she's been working on and sent a draft to you. But I'll just make one more point in this area, that at present Parliament's looking at the local government amendment bill in relation to Maori wards, and they're currently actually reading it yesterday and today, and it's likely to be passed pretty quickly. And in it, there's now an amendment which will require an active decision of council by the 6th of September around revoking or rescinding Maori wards or undertaking a poll at the 25 election. So if that goes ahead, there will be a report coming to the end of August council meeting for you to formally consider one way or the other on Maori wards.
Thank you. There's a whole pile of submissions here. Are there any submissions? We'll take the Granny Flat one separately, but are there any submissions that you want to question as to whether we should be in that space, or you want further information with regard to? No.
So with the granny flat one, Tiffany is in the room, if
Thank you.
there's anything further on that draft submission that was sent to you.
Tiffany, do you want to just join us? Do you wish to speak to your report?
No, I'm here to take it as read and just happy to take any questions or any feedback.
Questions from councillors? Go ahead.
I'm just, with reading your report, I don't think it's going to be a question you can answer here, but what went through my mind was, in terms of the virtual, inspections, what proportion of our, current inspections don't fail in that first inspection? I was just interested in that, you know, if it's.
Your hand's online.
Johan might be able to answer that.
I suspect it's more than what you think.
Okay, thank you.
Johan might give you a specific answer.
Sorry, thank you, Your Worship. Through you, could you just repeat that question, Councillor Fee?
So just interested, how many of your inspections fail on the first look?
Well, at the moment, on a weekly basis, we have got on an average over 50% of all inspections that fail. And not just the first inspection.
I think perhaps I'll just clarify that some things are just missed as opposed to being inappropriately built, and therefore that's one of the major tests that it's done, is making sure that all of those checks. And it might be something simply when you've got a variety of people working on it, that one particular, might be the electrician hasn't been, and they think it has, and it's picked up. So a lot of those failures are not necessarily on a point of not being an appropriate building. It's on things that haven't been done. So that's why some of these checks are important. But it is high, yeah.
Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, and thank you for this submission. It's fantastic. There's an awful lot in here, and I think it's been really well put together. I did have one question that popped up when you say, and this is on page 90, well, page 4 of your paragraph 4, the proposed NES outlined in the discussion document seems to be a fairly crude tool. Is that only because the requirements in relation to maximum building coverage and impermeable surfaces may not be appropriate, or are there a number of things in there?
So it was mainly to do with the fact that the stormwater requirements that they're put into place doesn't allow people to nuance, and we actually do have huge pressure, not just here but across the country, on our stormwater systems. Our plan is actually really permissive, and so it doesn't necessarily affect us too much. But what it'll do is the councils that have impermeable surfaces, so they'll say that you have to leave 30% of your site as like green grass or garden. And they've done that because they've done their stormwater calculations and they've understood that the pressure on their system requires that. Whereas the tool that they're proposing, it was a blunt tool that didn't take that kind of local flavour into consideration. And so really I just wanted to kind of add that in as they really need to think about, if they're putting in minimum requirements, to give councils the ability to do the calculations themselves and to put their own requirements in. I would imagine we'd have the ability to pad that out if they do propose like putting this tool in place, that hopefully there'd be another level of consultation that we could add some more detail into that. Thank you.
Councillor Loudon.
This is an afterthought that I've had recently with multi-unit type developments, which this is. Fire becomes an issue, one accessibility, and a lot of these granny flats possibly will be in the backyard.
Yep.
And so accessibility for a fire service to access them. Also relationships between buildings, that there needs to be appropriate fire separation or materials used.
So they state detached for that reason, that they don't want to compromise buildings. but I will take the note of
Yeah, there are
ensuring.
requirements with materials used and distance as well, so I think that's.
I'm happy to add that in, and perhaps Johan or his team can provide some context for that as well.
Further questions, councillors? Councillors, I'll go to you first, councillor Duncan.
No, sorry, I was just waving around. Sorry.
I've spent a bit of time looking at the Granny Flats one. And first comment I'll make is to distinguish the difference between granny flats and tiny homes. So tiny homes are not caught up in this. They are two separate entities. Tiny home tends to be one that is built on wheels and can be moved. It may not be on the owner's property. So that's a separate offence. I think that we need to support our consenting staff very much in this space. There have been a number of instances in our district where buildings that have been built with no oversight have proved to be problematic, shall I say. Yeah, we've had instances of houses that are literally running extension leads between properties to be able to provide power. So I support the submission in its entirety. I think it's very well written. Any further? Councillor Wakawa.
Just, Mayor Andy, you mentioned the difference between a granny flat and a tiny home. What's the difference between a garage, which is about the same size, when I read the same size as a granny flat? Is there a difference, or can people might just end up putting up garages?
You can.
I was going to say there's already, like, I guess, an exemption process, and Johan might be able to provide additional input here. So for a garage, it's a non-habitable structure. It has different requirements. There's already kind of something built into legislation where people can build a garage, and the requirements are different to building a house. This specifically is basically saying once you've got bathroom, your bedroom, your kitchen, everything in there, you can do this without requiring any building consent if it goes through in terms of what they're proposing.
Can I just say, the big distinction between a garage, of course, it's got no insulation or anything like that in terms of the habitable space. So the garage can go up.
So in theory,
people might use it as a living space.
And what I would say is what I have witnessed is there are people that are living in those. And yeah, that's addressed through another means effectively. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Just an issue that I thought about while reading your great report was, you know, how we're going to pick these things up for rating and getting the consent goes through to QV.
So there is a requirement to notify us as an authority, but the penalty for non-notification is only $1,000. So somebody could build something and say, I'm going to live in that. I'm not going to tell the authorities. And if I get caught, the only penalty is $1,000. There's so little oversight. Remember that some of the things that our council will be keen on checking is, one, has it been built in an appropriate place? Is it over the top of our sewage lines? Is it in a floodplain district or part of our district, sorry? So ultimately, if somebody can build wherever they like without those sorts of checks and balances, the repercussions can be quite high. So they're the reasons why I support this submission. And I'm happy to move recommendation 2 as part of that. Councillor Carter, are you happy to second? I've already spoken at length, so I don't think I need to add to this. Is there any closing comment?
The only closing comment that I would want to make is, did you want to make allowance in your recommendation for the update to fire safety in the submission? And I can add that update and circulate it to you.
Thank you, Councillor Loudon. Are you happy with that?
I am, yes.
We'll take it that it will happen. So it doesn't need to come back to us. We'll take it as part of the report. Put it to the vote, those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Go back to you.
Okay, now on to section 6, and as we outlined in the action items, this will be a regular update in this report, even if we're just updating similar to what we've got now, but we will make sure it's included in this report each month. Section 7, so this is an annual report that comes to the council every year. It's a requirement under the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act that the report comes to council and that it's actually confirmed by council and then put on our website. So I might just pause there.
You happy to move?
Just happy to move, Super.
Yeah. Thank you. Looking for a second to this. Thank you. Councillor Charland, you seconding? You wish to speak to it?
That's just receipt of the report.
Can I just ask Johan or officers if they wish to make comment around that numbers of applications or anything further?
No, he didn't.
No, okay. Any other speakers? What is the vote? Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much.
Section 8 is around a request from the Bulls Community Committee. Hopefully it's outlined there. What they had planned to spend on a service map now no longer needs to be done, as we've found alternative funding within our current budgets. And so now the Bulls Community Committee have missed the deadline for them to put the recommendation to their meeting, and also that their meeting didn't have a quorum, so it's coming through the council process for you to consider whether you're happy for those funds to be carried over.
So that we're speaking to a motion, is somebody wishing to move either for or against?
Happy to move for.
Happy to second.
Bruce second. Do you wish to speak to it?
Just to say it's consistent with previous decisions and of a similar nature made by council.
Any other speakers? What's the vote? Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you.
And that section 9 is another carried forward request from Te Rūpua Ahika. Just because of the nature of the meetings we've held during the year with the change in chair and a couple of meetings being cancelled, but also we took the time to review the Marae Development Fund, that we now have a more formal process in place, and so we didn't receive applications this year, but we know of a couple that are coming in very soon. So the request from Te Rūpua Ahika to carry that over so that we could provide for at least 1 or 2 marae in the next financial
I'll
year.
take questions first. A question from me, this is allocated within our current budgets. Looking for councillor Carr.
I'd probably, well, I know that part of our marae might be doing it, so I'll probably have a conflict of interest in this.
And I take that as a conflict of interest.
Okay.
Hang on, this is in general terms rather than being allocated to you. I'd probably be happy if somebody else moves it. I'm looking for someone to move it. Is that what you're wishing to do? Looking for a seconder to it. Councillor Wilson second. Saying, I don't see it as a direct conflict of interest, but because you could be a recipient of funds, then I take on board.
So just a question, this fund, is that been a budget line for a long time within our council, or how does it work, please?
You should.
Yeah, it's been in place for about 10 years. Yeah, and it's worked very well. It's usually uptaken every single year. So
thank you.
Sum total was about 20,000 or 15,000?
It's 15,000.
15,000.
And it's CPI adjusted.
Yeah. Councillor, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, only that I understand that this is
Any
the
others?
right thing to do.
Any other speakers? Councillor Wilson.
In support clearly, but just to say again, this is just a consistent approach the council takes on a number of these sorts of matters with these sorts of carry forward. So happy to support.
What is the vote? Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you.
And the last one is item 10 there, where you had public forum previously, and this is around their request to repurpose that $1,600 that was granted to them.
Councillor Wilson.
Maybe just second.
Speakers, you've
Just to say, I did have a couple of question marks on this as to whether or not it was the appropriate forum, or the appropriate way to go about this. But having seen the public forum presentation and the answer to my question that I asked was clear that it achieves the same outcomes, then I think it is appropriate for council to do so. So speaking in favour.
any other speakers to this? Put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you.
Page 99.
Thank you. Item 10, the Martin Industrial Development Area Plan Change, setting of an operative date. And we welcome Katrina while she's getting herself organised. Would somebody like to move the receipt of this report, please? Councillor and Councillor Hero second, Dalgety and Councillor Hero moving and seconding. Thank you. Katrina,
Thank you, Your Worship. This is effectively quite an administrative process for setting an operative date for the Martin Industrial Development Area. It's a plan change that's been through the entire process under the Resource Management Act in terms of the Schedule 1 process, and all appeals are now resolved. So really the only decision available to council is to make the plan change operative. There is a resolution up there, a draft recommendation up there for you to consider. Council allowed and had suggested an amendment prior to the meeting, changing the word approves to adopts. Should a councillor choose to move that, I wouldn't have any problems with that change. But happy to answer any questions.
does anybody have a difficulty with changing a word to adopt?
I'm happy to move, adopt.
You're happy to move an amendment
Yes,
and
and the
move.
recommendation. yes.
Okay. Take any questions around this process first. Sorry, can I just find a seconder as well? Councillor Okawa, you seconded. Any questions around this? This is quite rightly an administrative process. We're enacting a law that has been made. Councillor.
I just had one question. Has Rangitikei District Council sufficient funds in its long-term plan to fund all the infrastructure, free water servicing plus roading upgrades to enable the development of a new zone?
You're asking that question of whom?
If you want my opinion, this isn't specific to this particular request. This is just adopting a plan change that's been through the courts. So I'm not in a position to answer that, and I don't think it's applicable to this particular.
Thank you.
I'll support your interpretation.
Just a question, if, it's going to happen obviously, but do the rates change by changing it to industrial land? Like does our rates intake?
Well, that's still determined by valuation, which of course goes with that valuation cycle, but it's like, that's something the council will need to consider at some stage. It's like your residential ones, when they're used, they can be rated, but it goes on the valuation.
So it would become rated as industrial land,
Yes.
which tracks a differential in itself. Councillor Rakawa, question?
no, sorry.
Go back to Councillor Dalgety. Do you wish to speak to it? Ask questions.
No, it's all covered here. Great report, thanks.
Any other speakers? Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Katrina, for your help. 10.2, this is the contract award recommendation. IFE Town Hall Library Development. And could somebody please move the receipt of the report? Councillor Sharlin, Councillor Hira seconding. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Would you like to take this through this, please, Ashwin?
we've gone through this a number of times and culminated with Maycroft being brought in for a workshop to offer how they intend to approach this project. So we've, having gone through that, just wanted to see if there's any other questions or concerns around engagement.
Do you have any concerns you wish to highlight as part of your report?
No.
Thank you.
Through the chief executive.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, in the report, there is just under the recommendations, one correction that we have to make after the discussions that we've had with council to date. I'll just quickly bring this up. And what that is about, between recommendation 2 and 3, we would like to add one that clearly distinguishes between the previous procurement policy that was discussed and the procurement of this contractor as a direct appointment, to be sure that the two are different. So what we propose is to add a new recommendation that says that council confirms that the direct appointment of the preferred contractor is independent of the original procurement process for the Taipi Town Hall and Library redevelopment, and that council approves setting the requirements of the procurement policy aside from this appointment on this occasion. What follows out of that, though, if you look at the report, we use standard templates for the report. Section 10 of the report states that, as it always does, that we complied with the procurement policy. In this instance, we set aside the procurement policy, so we then just have to remove section 10 from that report, so we don't contradict ourselves in the same report. Kezia, if you could scroll up just a little bit. Section 10 is the last other one. It wouldn't be there. No, yeah, no, don't worry. Sorry, don't worry about that.
Perhaps I can just comment on this one. I do think you've confirmed and you've been through this process and we've raised it, but I think it's worthwhile having it recorded in a public meeting as to where we are. So
It's literally, it's a separation of two processes, even though there has in effect been a contestable type processes of engagement with regard to them. As such, I am happy to move that recommendation. I'm looking for a seconder to it. Councillor Wilson, do you wish to speak? Do you wish to second?
Yes, I do wish to second.
This is advice that has come back to us from staff and presumably checked at length, just to make sure that there's a degree of separation between two processes here. Councillor Duncan.
I'm wondering if, I'm not saying we shouldn't separate it, I understand all that, that's all really good. But instead of just taking 10 out, would it be better to actually clarify a bit more what the process was?
yeah, we can do that. Put the same sort of words that we've got in the recommendation into that statement. That's a good point, actually.
Any further questions or people that wish to speak to us? No, I'll put it to the vote then. Those in favour, those against, carried. Thank you. You wish to speak to, does somebody wish to address the next recommendation in terms of the project work plan for Taihape Town Hall and Library development all adopted? This is, sorry?
You had changed a couple of words in
You have some changes?
No, you did.
Yeah,
What
we
else
are.
this morning? On the risks page.
On the rest, consider instead of demolition.
Yes, sorry. Yes. I am seeking a couple of changes within this. And they refer to, and I'm just trying to find the right page. Can somebody find their page? Page 145. So on page 145, in terms of the risk, the first risk is the structural uncertainties of the facade due to unknown details of existing fabrication. And the action required is demolish and rebuild the facade in a lightweight material. It was an option. So it should, in my view, have the words consider. Again, as you scroll down further, again, it should apply also to the removal of first floor and extend ground. That is saying it is an action that it happens. Again, that was an option for consideration, not an action. So I'd move that the amendment to the work plan to include the words consider for both of those sections. Are you happy to second the amendment?
Yes.
Any questions around this? I think I've explained it. Yeah, I'll put it to vote. Those in favour of the amendment. Those against, carried. Thank you. In terms of now, are we in the position to deal with it as amended? We can't quite carry it there. Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Sorry, is there anybody in doubt here as where we're
What
at?
page are we going back to? Can you just?
145.
Sorry, we were on 145.
So now it becomes a substantive motion that the project work plan for the Taiape Town Hall Library redevelopment be adopted as amended.
Yeah.
You're still happy to second, councillor Duncan?
Yes, I was just trying to go back to where we were on the recommendations, page 127. Thank you.
You happy if I put it to the vote? Councillor Wilson.
Oh, voting for, I think that's where we're adopting.
We adopted an amendment, but put it to the vote for me. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Recommendation 4, that the council authorises the chief executive to enter into a contract with Maycroft Construction Limited in a sole contractor arrangement for the design and construction of Taiape Town Hall and Library redevelopment project for a sum not exceeding 14 million exclusive GST in accordance with the submitted program and decision-making hold points. Would somebody like to so move? Councillor Wilson, Chair of Assets, moving. Councillor Loudon, seconding. Any questions? Any speakers to this? What is the vote? Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. We move now to item 11, the reports for information, the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs 2023-24 review. And we welcome the fact that we have drivers of Mayor's Task Force for Jobs. So James and Louise, if you would like to introduce yourselves. Welcome to council and congratulations. I'll make comments around your performances a little bit later.
Thank you, councillor. So it's my pleasure to bring James and Louise from who look after the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs program for us here today. The purpose of their visit is to provide a review and provide victims with an update on the performance for the last financial year. So to that end, I'll pass over to James and Louise, who will take us through a bit of a presentation.
Yeah, no, let's, which would you prefer? Would you like to run through the?
Oh, no, it's up to you.
We'll run through this first. Thank you. That gives you a good chance.
So, yeah, thanks everyone. Appreciate your time. I know you're all very busy, so just thought we'd, it's about time. It's been a year today since we were in here actually. So a lot's happened since then. So just a bit of a brief summary on how our year has gone. Do you want to chuck up the next slides on?
We do have some printouts on this basis, so I'll hand
There's
this.
only 5 slides. So it's- Cool. So targets, our target for last year was 38, so it's full-time starting employment. And we benchmark ourselves against the whole 34 councils in New Zealand. And once again, we seem to come out on top. It's just, yeah, out of the 132 that we got last year, about 88 full councils done. 80.
66, isn't it, full-time sustainable?
Yeah, 66 of those are full-time sustainable, so that achieves our target of 38, so we're very happy with that. It's also good to see when
Can
we
I
look
just,
at.
are you taking questions?
Yes.
as we go?
Yep.
So how did you arrive at 38? How was that?
The target is in the contract.
Right,
So the target for all Mayor's Task Force for Jobs is 38 into full-time sustainable work.
and where was that number plucked, on what basis?
It used to be 50 and they reduced the funding, so they reduced the target outcomes. And they
Okay,
reduced
thank
the
you very
funding.
much.
But it's also good to see that across the board, quite a few other councils have upped their game as well, in Wairarapa and Kawerau in particular. So it's always our aim across the Mayor's Task Force to lift the bottom up, because we're all there to achieve the same goal. And what I always say is one day Rangitikei may not be, we might be down in the 40s or 50s, and we'd like to see someone else at 130, so pulling their weight as well. So it's very much a team effort. We look forward to starting again this year, which is already, we're a month into it already, so we're into it already. I'll just ask Louise to give you a bit of a breakdown for those in the room who'd just like to know where these jobs went and a bit about the demographics. So you could do that.
Just for those online that don't have the benefit, this highlights that the Rangitikei has been the highest achiever in the country. Position for quite some time.
Yeah. So there's breakdown. It speaks for itself, really. We have a variety of industries that we do place people in. So in small towns like Martin and Taihape, we don't have the bulk placements. So it might be 2 into building, 4 into market gardens, hospitality, but those are the general areas that we do place people, manufacturing. But it's a wide variety. And we've going back on those stats that were there before, 38 is what we need to do, but it's up to, I think we've got 132 placements. 66 of those are sustainable, and the rest are community outcomes. We're only funded for the 38, but as Mayor's Task Force for Jobs, we don't turn anybody away. It's about the community, it's about the people. So because of that, we get people just walking through the doors. I know I'm digressing on those figures. I'll go back to those figures. So when you see the flexi wage, the Mana and Mahi, do you all know what Mana and Mahi is? No? So that's an MSD product that's pretty amazing. It's big funding for businesses that take on youth. It doesn't have to be youth, but as an apprentice. It's $16,000 for the first year. It's amazing funding, and I push that wherever I can for our young people. Then there's a flexi wage and transition to work grant. So we actually, because our funding got reduced, we try and use the MSD funding.
What does flexi wage?
So flexi wage is an MSD product where we place a disadvantaged person. I still say we, sorry, we work closely with them, and I'm ex-MSD. So when we place a young person or anybody who's disadvantaged in with a business, they've got a bucket of money they can give an employee to help train them. It's called a flexi wage. Okay, they can't have Mana and Mahi and flexi wage. Mana and Mahi is a lot more money for an apprentice. So I try and use those. When I tick the box in our hub, it's called HubSpot, if I do flexi wage, it won't let me tick transition to work grant as well. So we do use transition to work grant a lot. We use MSD money. If they isn't available there for any of their criteria, we fund it. But with our funding being down a little bit, I use their money. And they're really accommodating to help people.
They encourage us to do that.
Yeah. So flexi wage is really good to help businesses.
I just put in there highlight our apprenticeships. I didn't put in the one from the graph because it's pretty low. I don't like putting low things in graphs, but 9 apprenticeships for Rangitikei is really huge for us. So over the last 4 years, we've probably only had about 9. It's a factory-based town. You know, a lot of the jobs are factories or meat plants and things like that. So that's probably the highest number that we've had since we've been doing it. So really, really keen to continue with that. But it was really a highlight for us this year. And then we have the breakdown in terms of ethnicity, in terms of Maori, Pacifica, New Zealand, European, and other as well. Are there any questions on that? I can just move on.
Do you run this program in conjunction with the Gateways program with the secondary school run?
No. Oh, we do work with the schools.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah, so we talk to the schools a lot about, and some of the school kids come to us and get part-time jobs in the fish and chip shop, which is not an outcome, but then when they're 18, they get a job with us, and that is an outcome. So we over the last 4 years, even though we're only guaranteed funding annually, we still pipeline kids. So we've got kids in a pipeline so that we might be getting someone to work this year who we might have met 2 years ago and put them into the local program. Because if they want to work, it's really good to encourage them to do it.
So going back to the schools, I met with Michelle Graham a couple of weeks ago, and even on Tuesday, I had 3 year 13 who want to get into apprenticeships. So I've met them, and we're going to see what we can do to help them.
So I'm just, so what's the difference between an apprenticeship and this mana mahi?
Mana and Mahi.
Yeah, so there isn't a difference.
Program.
Yeah, so Mana and Mahi is a funding for a business that's going to take on an apprentice. They need to be signed up within 6 months to get their Mana and Mahi funding.
So those 4 mana mahi will also be in that 9 of apprenticeships. Thank you.
Perhaps you could explain to the councillors what NEETs are and the target of people we work with.
So NEETs is not an employment, education or training, basically between 16 and 24.
So regardless, we put people into work regardless of what their status is.
Yep.
NEETs is one of our target areas. And the 16 and 17-year-olds who aren't on a benefit are already keen to get into work, and sometimes the health and safety legislation has an impediment to that. But once they get to 18 and they start getting a benefit, then they sort of forget about them wanting to work. So, yeah, we're very keen to work with that group of people.
Councillor Loughton.
Nationally, the general feeling is that jobs are getting harder and harder to get and employment's dropping off. Are you finding it like that in the Rangitikei? Is it getting harder to make placements, to find jobs?
Okay.
Yeah, so it will be getting harder. So there are still jobs out there. So, but it's harder. This month alone, we've got 16 placements so far. 9 of those are NEETs, which is the target. 9 are in the target group. We've got 5. So 80% of our target group need to be NEETs. 20% can be disadvantaged, either coming off a benefit, health condition. So we've got 5 of the 20% and we've got 9 of the 80%. It will get harder, Simon. It will get harder. So it's just working close with the businesses and the support we can wrap around the business and the individuals.
So effectively, this month, which is in the new financial year, you've put more people into work than a number of the other councils did all year. Effectively.
It's going to get harder, so I can't promise I'm going to do that every month.
No, but I'm just trying to illustrate just how successful this team is. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Worship.
Councillor Charlotte, Councillor Wilson.
100% going down the line of Councillor Loudon. So this document is a retrospective document looking backwards.
This is the last financial year, July to June 2020.
It's a two-year contract.
So this is the second year of it.
This is the second year of it. I think we'd all have to be realistic that it's job placement is hard out there at the moment. There's no doubt about that. We're certainly realistic to that. Does the current model that you're operating under, is it liquid enough or fluid enough to you to adapt to what is a difficult market out there? Or are you hamstrung anywhere along the line?
No, yes, it is liquid enough, and we're always liquid and nimble.
Yeah.
Our targets this year are 30 because the funding's been reduced again.
Yeah.
So 30, and Boo's got 15 already, so I think we're going to make it this year. But we still set our target every year is 100. We always try to get to 100. But it doesn't. So 20% of the people take 80% of the money. So some people take no money. Some people that we've pipelined and been through us before. Some people that we've got licenses in the past. So it's just a matter of If someone really needs that little bit of extra, we'll give them that, but it's actually, you know, I have really good people on my team, and it's actually the time that our people spend with them is it's worth more than the money that we put into it. And
We're
we,
confident the model that we're operating under, which has been in place for a couple of years, is sound and solid, and it's a good model going forward.
Councillor Loudon, Councillor Duncan, Councillor Loudon.
Just from what you're saying, like I'm quite impressed in this pipeline process that you actually have feeders coming in through all the time, and you're picking kids up from school and sort of working them through a process over several years, which is important. It's not like a 2-year program. It's an extended program of a long time. So.
yeah, thank you. We've always paid it forward because sometimes even if we get a 50 or 60-year-old or a 45-year-old who's not even in our funding bracket, we get them a job with a local employer, and you're happy and have a good experience with us, and then we say, oh, by the way, we've got a 17-year-old, would you mind giving them a chance or even some work experience? So we kind of pay it forward that way, and we don't tend to worry about the numbers too much, but if you look after the individuals, the numbers just come. So, you know, like normally in the first half of the year, sometimes we get, you know, maybe 20 or 30, and then all of a sudden it's like 70 or 80. So it just kind of, if you look after everyone that comes through your door, then sort of it's up to you.
There are essentially 3 mayors and a councillor that are the senior governance group of this, and that has worked incredibly well. And I'm privileged to be part of that group, but I also acknowledge the fact that the chair has just made public his resignation. So that's the group that effectively have to lobby government and say, hey, we need to keep the program running. What about the following year funding, etc. So it's always a challenge, especially the climate the government's in at the moment.
The 2-year contract seems quite limiting to me. Do you find that, or?
Limiting in terms of
The succession of what you're doing and just managing going forward.
Well, 2 years. Well, previously we had 1-year contracts, so
Oh,
two years for us is
Oh.
2 years for us is
Right.
great.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, believe me, it's a worry. Yeah,
But we can't worry about things we can't do anything about. So just
You said you got funding for 38 places, but you've got nearly 140. How did you get on for placing in between 38 and 140?
well, it doesn't cost any. Well, people come through. We have office in Taipei and an office in Martin, and one person comes through the door, 20 people come through the door. There's someone there always to see them, so it doesn't cost you any. Your fixed cost is the same. It's just the time that you put into the
I'll
people.
go back to the correct order of speaking. My apologies, Councillor Duncan, then Councillor
That's
Okawa, Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. Thank you, James and Louise. Yeah, I think this is actually quite a quiet source of pride for us from Rangituki that these stats keep coming through so brilliantly. So thank you for that. When we last looked before the contract came up, you spoke about your team. And so, I mean, you've explained quite clearly that the placement of jobs is tricky, but how's your team as far as going forward and, you know, the way it works together and the future of that? Do you find that that's very stable and you're really happy with how that's working?
We've reduced the team as people have left. We haven't replaced them. So Dana and Renee both went and had children. And Dana's actually now living in Whangarei, so we miss her, but she was great. Louise and I picked up a little bit as we've gone through uncertainty around contracts. We've just brought on Caleb, and we have the team in Taipei does. So we have an office in Taipei that does Heartlands and MTFJ. So basically, when we're in an office, we just wear whatever hat we need to wear on that day. So we've kind of gone down and IEA staff, and Louise contracts to us, and so she's like me. If it turns off, we turn off. And I also get the odd person that says that they like to work for us and they can place 10 people. And so I say, okay, that's great. You go and place 5 people and I'll play you on an outcome basis, and they come back with nothing. And so I know that it's probably not best to employ them in the first place. So, and that works for us too, and it works for them. We pay quite, you know, we'll subcontract them to get a couple of people into work. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But if it does, it's good for us and good for them as well.
Councillor Okawa.
James, Louise, great work.
I want to go back to your stats. Now, all this morning, and we've heard, I keep hearing a lot, that we tip the scales, Māori and Pacifica tip the scales in work, health, and all these sort of things, but your that graph there shows that you're working with that you've put into work, is it? More New Zealand Europeans than is there a reason for that? You're not getting in front of enough Māori or Pacifica who are apparently need work and this area, or you are working with them and that's who comes. I'm just wanting to know, your stats are brilliant. I mean, for Māori, it makes me feel, oh, yes, we're not tipping the scales and we are actually at the lower end of the, well, of that, what I'm saying there. Is that right? Or is it just who you've got into work?
It is just that.
In the last year?
Yeah, it is just that, Carol, because last year it was 70% Māori and Pacifica, and I think the year before was probably the same, and I was actually a bit surprised when I pulled that off. I think, were you as well? Yeah. So, yeah, it's just people that walk through the door.
Right,
great. I was just going to say, nationally, the question that Jill raised was around sustainability and staff. So if you look at Kaikoura, so Kaikoura got about 43 into work. 2 years ago, they were in the top three. And what's the guy's name around that? Anyway, we meet annually, and the chap that was running that was outstanding. And he got an offer. He was a chef, and he got an offer a full-time job as a chef. So he took it on, and Kaikoura suffered. Apotiki was with us in the pilot in 2020 when we first started. So they got about 50 into work in their pilot. We got 30, and Central Hawke's Bay got 50 as well. So, Southern Wairarapa got 50. So Apotiki was another star. They lost their manager, and they lost their Louise type person as well. So you can see what happens when just through the uncertainty. But it is what it is. They're annual contracts. It's subject to government. We got it because of COVID mainly, and then they rolled it out for another year, and then they've given us another couple of years, and they've reduced the payment. But it still works. And
You're staying.
cut our cloth to fit.
You are staying.
Yeah. No, we just cut out. If there's another contract, we just cut our cloth to fit, and we always know that we're going to meet the minimum target. That's just what we can do on top of that.
Awesome.
Thank you. Wishing to move on. Did you?
Yep. Just wraparound services. Like you guys obviously great Mother Hubbard's and look after everybody, but a lot of this cohort will possibly have other issues that would need to be addressed. Do you work with other providers to deal with drug abuse or whatever?
Yeah, we're quite fortunate where our office is. It's the counselling service. And there's been a few occasions that we've had to, would you like an appointment with the police? Please, I'd just wait here, and I would just nip down the corridor because everyone's quite often they've got more than one issue, and quite often it's mental health. So we're actually really fortunate to have that counselling service. So, yeah.
And we work with Ngāwaraki Ngāti Apa, some as well.
Yeah, Shawny. Yeah.
Yep. And 5 of our jobs.
And quite often it's a phone call of support. You know, before they start work, I had a young boy start work the other day, and the night before went, hope it goes well tomorrow, all the best. You know, it's just that knowing that somebody's there to talk to. But yeah, the wraparound service is very important.
They've reduced the funding, and for this year the funding's reduced, and they've reduced the 90 days to 30 days. Probably because we had a full-time person on pastoral care, but we'll still do that ourselves where we can.
Right.
Just one quick one.
Last question, Councillor Sharon, because I do need to move on.
Once you've got them placed into jobs, do you encourage them to get further qualifications like joining an ITO or anything? Oh, you do? Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, James, Louise, thank you very much. We absolutely congratulate you. And I also like to pay to ex-councillor Kalkin, sorry, my apologies. So one of the things that happens is literally trying to forge links. And Jared and I went to a business the other day, and I think he was following up with you directly with regard to that business. So yeah, so thank you, Jared. Right.
Yes, I'd like to thank Jared and Katrina. Who've joined our team, or we've joined their team, and it's been great, especially with the strategic mindset that they have. So thank you.
Is there anything further that you wish to add in terms of the report?
Only that the partnership is ongoing. We meet regularly to make sure that if there's any issues or anything that needs to be relayed both ways. And it's a partnership that appears to be working really, really well on both sides. So just want to thank you both for coming in and presenting, and for the mahi you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would somebody like to move, we go to the report be received, councillor Wilson moving, councillor Carter seconding, those in favour? Aye. Carried.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
See you
you.
later.
Yeah.
Good question. Thank you. Moving to reports for information 11.1. Done 11.2. This is the PMO report. And
So
thank you, Ms. Gordon.
just briefly, Ishwar is here to answer some questions on his projects and give you an update on where we're at with them, in particular this, the build on this site and also the grandstand. But apologies from Peter, he is unwell with the lurgy that seems to be very prevalent in our community at the moment. So he would be here, and if there's any hard questions, I'm sure Anna will get answered.
Would somebody like to move that the report be received, please? Thank you, councillor Dalgety. Councillor Lambert, welcome back to the fray. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you.
So I wonder if we just go through each project.
Yes,
and I'm
please.
sure, the Martin de Bulls wastewater centralisation project, Anna, have you anything else you want to add to that one?
No, I do not. I think really the complex thing at the moment is just to get those consents across the line.
The Ratana discharge to land, I know there's been some requests to have further information out to that group, and Anna's working on that at the moment to give them a progress update.
Any questions with regard to Ratana? No? Thank you.
Papakai wastewater pump station, anything extra on that one?
Nothing really.
Can I just ask the questions? There were questions raised around drainage of the wider site. Have they been addressed?
Yes, they have. So as we reported previously, it has not been, the work's not been completed. So if it's part of the scope, it will be covered by the contractor. If it's outside scope, we'll deal with it. So it will be covered. Yep.
You happy?
Thank you. Yes, I understand that most of the issues I raised were actually not part of the contract. So thank you.
Thank you. 3.4.
I have a question.
Question, councillor Duncan.
Just wondered, in 3.4.3 at the bottom of the page, it says until the ponds are desludged. I wonder if that is scheduled, or is that just something that's in the pipeline, so to speak? Excuse the pun.
I can reply to that, Your Worship. That was an original idea, but at the moment, because of the upgrades that we've done, we don't need to do that right now. It's potentially something that'll come later down the line. Depends on what happens with the future plan, but it's not necessary right now.
And I'm sure Peter won't mind me mentioning this. This was going to be his last council meeting here. He had been offered a fantastic opportunity in Australia, so he'll be leaving in a couple of weeks' time.
I know.
Very sad to see him go.
Quite like Kudo for film, and that is stink. Yeah, it's pity to lose him. He's a lovely guy.
And he was very reluctant, but it's an opportunity he couldn't turn down. Right now, Ishwar's in the hot seat, so there is some dates on the Martin Water Strategy.
We're continuing to do the trial plan. So far, the results have been very positive, and we're pushing the system to a higher capacity and then slowly testing it. We've done that for about 4 or 5 weeks now, and we've arranged, that's with the Tutanui Bow water. In the next week, we are trying to set up shift the trial plant to the new board. So that work will happen over the next 2 weeks, and then we should start testing the waters at the new bore. And we're also trying to test water at the two bores, and if the difference in quality is beyond 5%, I think that's when we want to mix the waters and test. If the waters are not vastly different, we will still continue to do it, but that we will not wait for it to take a decision on the system itself. So we might just take the decision and move on with the membranes itself. Otherwise, on the electrical works, we've received the drawings from PowerCo, so I think they're looking at it. So we should get a response from them in the next couple of weeks.
Questions? I've got one, but I'll go around the room. Councillor Dalgety, Councillor Wilson, Councillor Maughan, Councillor.
Are they also going to be giving us an estimate of operating cost
We're
around the
trying,
power?
we're trying to estimate that through this trial plant.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Same thing on the power, is the question of the power, because the PowerCo application to PowerCo has come up on a couple of previous reports. Is it whether or not there's enough power at the site or getting power to the site? Is that actually an underlying question?
No, so far, no, it's pretty much confirmed is what I understand, because the PowerCo engineer has already looked at everything, the drawing's already out. So it's only a question of they putting a number to it and then sending it back to us.
So there's power on the site, there's no question, there's no.
Yeah, can I just fill that in, Your Worship, if I may? Is to get the power to the site. So there's some upgrades to the wires, and then there's some upgrades to the transformers and some switches and things, but it's to get it to the site.
Councillor Maughan.
This is not particularly on this water strategy, but related to the water up there. The new regulations about dams and stuff like that.
We'll deal with it as a separate item and I'll come back to you. Councillor Lambert.
I'm skipping forward to 3.5.5, no response from the iwi. You still gonna, just to keep the thing moving?
Yes.
Still engaged?
Yeah, we've still put in the consent application. Consent application is already lodged. The license have already responded, the documents are in order. So that's moving ahead. What we did was we had given them proof about our conversations with EV, and then we've sent them emails that we've sent to EV to fix this meeting. That's all they have at the moment.
From me, I don't want to lose sight of the guarantee that was provided to us. So with these reports, can you just put a line item that constantly reminds ourselves as well as yourself that that was part of the deal?
Yes. Just was one of the little things that jumped out with me too, 3.5.5. And it said no response as yet. Just a little thing that sits in the background. Have we just checked the way we're trying to make that engagement? Because if we aren't getting a response, perhaps our request to engage isn't as good as it could be. So I'm just making it as a general comment.
Through you, Randy, we just had that same conversation, is that maybe there's other ways of trying to get that out. But it's more likely to be a consequence of how busy they are, and it's something that they're aware of, and it's just tracking on. But we'll do
Something to be aware of.
Yeah, I think you've got to realise that some of these iwi groups, the amount of work on is you would not believe when you get in there. I think you can probably quantify that. There's requests coming from all sorts of people for responses, and it's a matter of them picking their way through it. But my understanding is that they are well informed of it. It's just getting around to getting it. So I'll chase that up.
Any further questions around Martin Water?
I just had one. I should ask you this anyway, Ishwa, but in terms of the testing and the results being positive, that is the quantities as well as
the qualities.
Just the qualities.
The quality.
Okay, having dealt with that, I'll go to Councillor Maughan. Councillor.
Yes, just the question about the new regulations about dams that we're juggling on farm, and I'm sure you guys will have to, because we've got quite a few of them, I'm guessing. That we come under that new dam regulations.
Are you requiring any action? This
I
is just a conversation.
Well, just asking it, an action that we get an update on where we are with those new regulations, really.
Through your worship, yes, we are completely on top of all those requirements and submitting to Horizons when we need to. So it's all good.
Is this with regard to this? Because
Yeah, I'm not a farmer and I haven't got a dam. What are the regulations regarding dams that we are required to sort of be on top of?
I think it'll come back as the report that the staff members indicated. Councillor Duncan.
On the same lines, I'm wondering what responsibility the council has in sending out the information to farmers or to anyone with a dam. Is that part of our remit?
No, that's driven by Horizons.
Horizons.
They'll be doing that.
Thank you.
And they have done that.
Yeah, I was just going to point out, Horizons has sent out numerous things on that.
Yeah.
We've been inundated with information.
Right, I'll raise one, not with regard to Martin water strategy, but the heading is water projects. And we have had an indication of an interest of a potential alternative supply for Taihape water. And I would like to move that that council investigates any potential future options for the supply of water, drinking water to Taihape. And at this stage, it could be a very low level look at potential options in the future. But I don't think it's wise of us to have somebody make offers to us and we haven't followed through.
Can I?
Before we can discuss, I need to have a second to the motion. You prepared to second? Up for questions, up for just
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick update. We did reply to them and said because of resource constraints, we would only be able to really look at this early next year. And they came back and said, yeah, that's fine, thank you. That's the plan.
Okay, well, perhaps so that we can make a line item somewhere, so that we have this recorded as an action through council, whether it's just an action requirement of council, I'd accept. But I had put a motion on the floor, and the action would actually cover it, but I prefer to go through council. Wilson.
Supportive of your recommendation, but perhaps it needs just to be noted that it gets adopted to the actions register so that it remains in our focus and in our sights.
Yeah. Any further? Otherwise, I'll put it on vote. Councillor.
Just a comment on when Councillor Duncan read out your email, had a timeline of December this year as to some indication or some response.
No, I think we'll share that later at the discussion. Councillor Moore.
I just wonder whether the motion is specific enough because, you know, it could be a myriad of ways to look at future options for water for Taihape. I think what we're trying to do is get it specific to the request or the offer that has been made to council.
If there's a refinement to the recommendation, I'd be prepared to consider it. I've left it generally fairly loose for the reason I can't be quite specific enough around it at the moment. But I think the intent is there.
As part of the action items, I might just refer to email or
Yeah.
send
We'll
to.
call it the alternative Taihape water source or the proposed alternative Taihape water source.
Yeah,
So that's
I'm
more,
quite happy for that.
that's more specific.
What you actually want is us not to lose sight of it, to keep following up.
Exactly. The outcome is I don't want this to drop off the radar.
We know what it means anyway, so long as it goes on to the action statement, it's not just sitting there.
Right, I'll put it to vote. Those in favour? That's against, carried. Thank you.
Can I carry on through that pen real quick?
Yes, certainly.
I will just make a point here. I don't want to reopen discussion on the water strategy, but Ishwar and I have talked about getting some comms out around this project now, in terms of timeframes. So we're actually meeting with Arno early next week to involve the comms team on getting the messaging out there around the timeframes, in particular with this one.
Yes, yes. And if I may just add, in particular, when we start working on the network, we would have to be very clear on what's going on so people know what to expect.
So we'll start rolling that out in August.
I think just my comment to that is, although the project is the Martin Water strategy, and this is focused on the production, every time that you're talking about that, people will be thinking of turning the tap on. So it's how it's affected in the reticulation system as well that we have to keep addressing, even though it's not part of Ishwar's actually project direction. It'll be hooked and needs to be hooked on.
Sorry. I just was wondering, could that involve a public open day of?
That's what we've said.
Yeah, that's one of the options. I think we're waiting till it was nicer weather.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on, community facilities.
Martin offices and library projects. So there's two sets of work that's happening. One is on the background work on the site and other complications that the site offers here. So we've done a soil contamination survey. The preliminary survey has come back with, I mean, it's a 100-page document. I've not had the time to go in detail, but the gist of it is there seems to be some sort of contamination, predominantly around where the old residence is. I think it's coming off those paint peeling and all that. Paint used to have lead, so there's a high contamination of lead in some areas. So at every spot that they have tested, it has tested positive for at least one of the elements. So now we'll have to relook at whether this is something that tie it together with the project, or we could look at this building as a separate entity. So we could look at clearing that site first, so it doesn't disturb the overall project schedule when we get into it. So that's something that I will come back to you once I've understood the implications of this test results and then understood the future steps. Otherwise, on to get the scope clarified, we've engaged team architects to conduct a series of workshops with the stakeholders. That includes the governance reps, the staff, and the executive leadership team. We've scheduled 4 workshops throughout August. At the end of this workshop, we should have a scope document, which should be in much more detail than the one that we prepared for Taihape. This document is what we will use as a base document to go to tender. So we anticipate these workshops to run for the entire August, and then there's another 4-week period we've allowed to prepare that document, and then we hope to go to market for tender sometime in October. And we are hoping to have concluded the tender process by the end of this year. At least we should have collected responses, but it's unlikely we'll be able to respond to them or evaluate them in this year. So we've scheduled it for February to be able to evaluate and get a direction on that.
Questions?
I'm just, you may have told us already, but what will be the touch points back with this table in that process?
So during the workshops, we've also scheduled bi-weekly governance rep meetings. So there's a constant update that's happening. And we've also suggested to do one update in the middle of August when there's an assets and infrastructure meeting. I could do another update then, so you know how we've got to that point. And then at the end of August council meeting, I could present whatever has happened in the last 4 weeks.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions, councillor?
How's this ground contamination gonna affect the whole project?
We know it's contaminated, but to what extent we don't know. So that will kind of come into play when we start excavation. So that's when we'll be able to evaluate that.
Councillor Wilson.
Just, to hear the words lead and ground contamination may send alarm bells, but it is not uncommon. In projects of this, to find some form of contamination.
Yeah.
It's part of the course. Certainly not surprised to hear it. It's just what you deal with when you're dealing with these sorts of projects. It's the way it is.
We had it in Boulder, Carter Holtz.
Meaning you just dig it out.
The outcome will be what it is once you've understood the level of contamination, I should imagine, but Ishra will be all over that.
I'd like to move on to 3.7 Taipi Grandstand. With you again, luckily.
Taiape, the last time we had this discussion was where we had presented two different options. Of the first route that we had taken ended up being a very iterative process. So we had brought back another approach that we wanted to get on. But I'm not very clear there wasn't a very clear direction at the end of that discussion. So
yes, I've looked at this one. You'll know.
I'll take it.
There's a chair of assets quite.
Well, I've looked at this one a little bit, and it was at the last assets meeting that this direction was given to Ishra when we decided that there was possibly an alternative method. But if you look at the report that's here in front of us, it says at 37.1, the final line of that, it said upon further discussion, staff have since managed to get an indicative cost. Do we know what that indicative cost is?
So this is for the concept design, right?
Yeah.
Yes, so that's about 30,000 to prepare the concept designs.
And so my understanding of that is that would then enable us to get a costing that could go back to the community to enable the community fundraising for the completion of this project as part of our long-term decisions earlier on to fund up to $1 million, correct?
That's right. So at the end of that concept design, we should have identified what technical solution that we are looking at, and then we would have to engage a QS. So that's the only component that's missing in that 30,000. So at 30,000, we get a design solution, and then we engage a QS to evaluate, to put a number cost onto that solution.
And then more than 30,000.
Yes. So
Perhaps I've got a motion that may cover this. You're thinking along my lines here. And that my motion would be that council approves expenditure of up to 40,000 from the existing Taiape Grandstand budget. So this is not new money, to enable staff to progress the concept designs and engage a quantity surveyor. That's the next steps in this project.
I think that's what we need to go.
That gives you up to 40,000 for this work to be done, and I'll move that, but looking for a second for discussion.
Happy to second.
Essentially, we left you in a little bit of a limbo here in terms of wanting something done, but not actually providing the resource or the budget decision to allow it. So I see this as a catch-up process. I think Councillor Wilson's on exactly the same strategy. Yeah.
I wanted to put a finger on the pie, as we've talked about this before. Is 10,000 enough for a QS for that?
Should be okay, because this is only preliminary costing, so we're not doing detailed costing.
Yeah, I just didn't want to come back.
Councillor Duncan.
I'll speak in support of that. I would also like to know, though, the community has actually asked for a type of MOU to get engaged with this fundraising, etc., around this process. I know this will not hold up what this is saying, which is great. I'm just wondering, they have said to me that they have not had any feedback from council around such a thing, and I just wanted to bring it back to the table that I think that's what they're seeking. So we may need to have some sort of further communication with the group.
Certainly, we can look at that, or staff can look at that, but essentially what has happened here is we have set aside $1 million, and this continues to take money out of that fund, but it will at least establish what the scope of work and amount of money that they're going to have to raise and the outcome that they will get from that. So I'm sorry, Taiape, you're going to have to get your act together to raise the balance of these funds.
Can I ask for clarification? I personally am not aware of any requests for an MOU. Is that an MOU
It's not come to me.
You're not
No,
aware
I'm
of
not
it
aware.
either, so.
Okay, well, yes, I'm very certain that the chair of the grandstand subcommittee has communicated with council. It may even be up to a year ago. It may even be longer than that, actually, because when it first went through the long-term plan.
Perhaps
it
you
may-
and I can.
I can give you that context.
Yeah,
Yes,
we're
yes.
dealing in second and third conversations here is the issue. Councillor Wilson.
Can I just suggest that, should this motion get voted on, which I can just point it does have a mover and a seconder, that it would actually enable such an MOU to possibly be developed around some more factual information. So this is really just the first stage of perhaps enabling what Councillor Duncan is suggesting, but we've got to deal with the first stage first.
I concur. I've spoken to it. Are there any other speakers to it? Councillor Hill.
I'm just in support of this corridor, just like to ask that, well, given it's been on the table for a lot of things, many years, a number of years, the sooner we get into it, the better.
Any other speakers? Otherwise I'll put it to vote. Nobody spoke against. Sorry, councillor. Those in favour? Those against carried. Thank you very
I do have a
much.
question now, sorry.
Yes. It's allowed.
So, just a few things I just want clarified in my mind. The current condition of the showers under the grandstand, how would you describe them?
I don't have a reference in New Zealand.
Thank you.
There's not a word in English here.
Thank you. So are you aware that they still being used?
To be honest, when I walked in, I just wanted to walk out.
So are you aware, are we aware as council that they're still being used? Yes, Galen is aware. And so,
Look under the showers.
so we have this brand new building across the paddock, which members of the community up there are saying it's too expensive to use, and then they go and use these very substantial facilities, and I just, that is uncomfortable with me.
Can we get Galen, can you provide us?
I've had an on-site meeting with representative from Utuku Old Boys, Taihape Rugby and Northern Wanganui. They were using the grandstand when there was, say, all teams were playing in one day and there wasn't enough capacity for the changing room. We've had no discussion about the costs of the building. There hasn't been any cost to them to use it. The first year we were trialling it to see what the costs were.
Thank you. So Taihape Rugby is not charged to use that Te Awa building.
No.
Thank you.
Councillor Hero.
Well, I think it's just for your, it's pretty well known, and having been part of that, the rugby scene up there for, haven't been in it lately, but I do know that it's a historical thing. Those rugby clubs wanted to stay there, and things that I've heard recently is that it's the whole thing of being able to run straight out onto that field, which is what they've done for many years. And so there's a number of people that still want to be able to do that. They can't do that at the other space. And they will still continue to use it. It's a historic, it's a legacy thing that they've got to get themselves past in my knowings of it. But you would not want to step in there, and I used to be quite involved in it, and that's 8 years ago, and you wouldn't want to be part of it. So they still want to be in there.
And if I can just add one more thing, in speaking with the rugby clubs that day, they are aware that we're going through this process with the grandstand that Ish was just talked about, and they're waiting to see where that gets to.
Thank you. I'll move on. 3.8, councillors, I know that we've been sitting for over 2 hours, but I think for those online, we're probably 5 minutes away before so I'll continue. 3.8, Taihape Town Hall.
We've just covered that one.
So that's all done. Scott's Ferry Project Manager. Nothing there.
I'd just like to ask where we're up to on that. Is there any progress?
Through you, your worship, the update that you have in the report's pretty accurate.
Okay.
Tapu Bridges. Anything there? No, right.
The only thing there that I'll just keep pointing out is that we have a set amount of money for that one, and so what we are requiring is that the bridges be built in completion rather than in stages, so that not six stages are done and no bridges completed. So just making it clear as to what our focus is on that.
That takes me through to, I believe, receiving of minutes.
Recommendation one needs to be.
Did I do that? 12.1.
Recommendation be received.
Yeah, no, we did.
We've already done that.
Sorry.
So 12.1 was receiving as a block, please. The minutes. Councillor, you prepared to move, looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Lambert, I think you were. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, I do. In terms of the Bulls Community Committee meeting that was cancelled, I was tasked at the meeting prior to that, and I just want to ask a question. There has been an outstanding follow-up action since the 11th of August 2021, and the committee has asked me to ask, and I'm just for an update or where the counting is for, or what has happened with the stats for that criterion. So it was traffic counting to be put on the criterion Taumahi Street, and they haven't got a report yet or the numbers for that.
Well, first of all, this is about just receiving some minutes, so I'll complete that first. And those in favour, those against, carried. And perhaps there needs to be, if we're dealing with something from 2021.
But it was in the minutes in 2024.
Okay. Staff, any advice around this, please?
I will follow up on that, your worship, and get those numbers. I can remember actually we did report on that somewhere to either Assets Infrastructure or Council, but I'll follow up and
Thank you.
dig it up
That's just what the stands.
on both those counts.
So can that be an action that's just action that's recorded? Sorry?
I know we'll run this way, but sooner this is done.
Thank you. Would somebody like to move that we go into public excluded as shown? Councillor Carter moving, Councillor Wilson seconding for the reasons given. Any questions around that? No. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you for those people online. And